competitive balance is always seems to be in the news. Um, and what struck me so much about watching yet another Patriots Super Bowl uh, was here we are just flush against this notion of competitive balance where we have the same team over and over again. It really is listen, I'm not a fan of that team, I know. And I don't let my bias come through, but I was in the NFL 10 years. I'm not a fan of that group. Things I know that you'll never know. But anyway, you have to be impressed because everything we've talked about the last 2 weeks and we're going to talk about today is designed to do the opposite, right? It's designed to make sure there are no New England Patriots out there. There are no dynasties. There are no teams with continued levels of high, sustained success. That's what these leagues want from a business point of view. They want the opposite. They want a new team winning every year. They want new teams doing well every year, which they have. But everyone's going to focus on the champion. And the champion is the same team that keeps getting there. Listen, it is an amazing story what is happening with the Patriots because everything we're talking about, I'm repeating myself, is designed to get them back to the pack, right? Last week we talked about draft. Well, guess where they're drafting? Last pick. Now we're going to talk about cap. We're talking about free agency. Those three things are designed to promote competitive balance. They're designed to promote parity. They're designed to make sure there are no New England Patriots like we've had. And the Patriots keep overcoming them. In a league designed to promote competitive balance, promote parity, the Patriots keep overcoming it. Now, we can all have our theories, right? They've got the best coach. They've got the best quarterback. That's a big part of it. But that's not enough in a team sport, as you know. So there's something about them that has, it's a system, it's a fundamentalism that they have that seems to overcome these obstacles. And I call them obstacles because the goal of the business of sports is to have a balanced product. So it's amazing. You know, it's happened in other sports, the run of something like a San Antonio Spurs, the run of some teams in baseball over the years, but baseball's different because there are no financial restrictions on clubs. But in a salary cap league, it really is amazing because it's designed to push down teams like that and pull up teams that do poorly. So kudos to them. Patriots fans in here? Hand held high. It's a good day to do that. Rohan, you're spoiled. What do you think's they're behind their sustained success? What do you mean organized? Yeah. Got rid of the backup. Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, but as I said, even that's not enough. There are a lot of teams with continuity at quarterback and coach that, not for 20 years, but for a good length of time. Anyone else see kind of a secret sauce to the Patriots that maybe other teams are lacking? I mean, obviously there's something about them beyond the great coaching. Is that Ian back there? Bad teams? Yeah, so part of it is circumstance. They happen to be in a division with teams that have been bumbling for years. And that's, circumstance is kind of a fancy word for luck, but you need that. Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, yeah. No, no. And now we're on tape, so I got to be careful. But listen, it's something I've written and talked about for years. It's one of the great mysteries of sports, and it's not the fact that Brady takes less money is not a mystery. It's not a mystery because you can look at the data, you can look at his salaries, you can look at his renegotiations, look at his bonus money, and compare it to all the other quarterbacks in his tier of player, and there's not an argument. There's no argument. He takes less money. So the mystery then becomes why? Why? And I've heard everything. And a lot of people say, well, his wife's a supermodel. I'm like, come on, really? Like if she was a normal woman, he'd get more money? No, I don't believe that for a second. And I don't believe this whole idea of helping the team because he can help the team with, we'll go over this sort of cap renegotiations, which all the quarterbacks do. Breeze and Roethlisberger and Rodgers, they all do cap renegotiations. He could do that, and he does do that. But that doesn't mean he takes less cash, which none of these quarterbacks do except him. The other thing that's thrown out there is what you're suggesting, is that the Patriots contribute in some way to other causes, meaning maybe his fitness guru that has a place at the stadium maybe, or that brings in other players and was supposedly working with Edelman and Gronkowski, whatever. That would be a major violation. That would be a major violation of the salary cap. And some people throw that out like, yeah, that's what happens. I'm like, no, if that happened, the Deflategate penalties would seem like slaps on the wrist. They can't do that. The salary cap is very clear. You pay a player exactly what's in the contract and nothing more. No other consideration. Zero. No cars, no under-the-table payments, no business investment, no promises you're going to be owner, no promises you're going to be some ceremonial ambassador of the team when you're done. Can't do that. And if there was any shred of evidence that they were doing that, that would be a big problem. So we're left with Brady consistently taking less money to help the team. Believe it or not believe it? To me, I don't get it. because the Patriots would be just fine paying him more money. They're not cash strapped. And in terms of salary cap, they're always kind of in the middle of the pack. They're never strapped for cap. So, use your own conspiracy theory mind to figure that out. But clearly Kevin's right. This is an ongoing mystery of anyone in the NFL business, why Tom Brady continues to take less money than other quarterbacks. He's about the 50th highest paid player in the league, I think. 60th, maybe. It's uncanny. Yeah, Mark. Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the thing about there's only a couple in people in sports that are both coach and general manager, and because they're so different. You know, general manager is very future focused. You're looking at how's the team going to be down the road? What are you going to do in 2 years? What happens when this player retires? What happens when our young players mature? Where are we going to push out other players? That's a general manager's role, and we'll talk about that in a couple weeks. Very forward thinking. A coach's role, and some of you have coached your own, is very immediate. Coaches are all about the here and now, the present. How do we win this game today? How do we play next week? How do we scheme for next opponent? Those are clashing. And there are a couple people in this universe of pro sports that do have both roles. And you either have to be one of two things. You have to be really forward thinking as a coach, which is always going to be tough with your veteran players. Or you have to be totally unemotional and merciless, which is Belichick. You have to have no emotion towards your players. Because otherwise it's an impossible job. Coaches have to motivate. You know, all of you have been coached. Coaches have to motivate. Coaches have to get players to run through a brick wall for them. Coaches have to have players trust them. Trust. Feel like you're in my life. I got your back. And then you're pulling the purse strings. If you're both, like Belichick is, but Belichick's able to pull it off. He is coach and general manager. Andy Reid is coach and general manager. But Andy Reid's a softer personality, so he has someone else kind of be the bad guy. When I was in Green Bay for a while, we had a coach general manager, a guy named Mike Sherman. His son-in-law just got named coach of the Cincinnati Bengals today. So Mike would come to me sometimes and said, Andrew, I'm going to make you the bad guy here. To cut a player, to reduce his salary, to tell him he can't continue on with us. And I said, I totally get it. I get it. I understand it. I totally understand. You can't be that guy. Because you have to have a trust in the locker room. So it's a very hard job, but only one guy, I think, has ever been able to do it. Two, actually. In basketball, Greg Popovich, because he's kind of a jerk. And you need that. You kind of need that personality. Any other comments on the Patriots? We joke about them, we talk about them, we talk about kind of a conspiracy theory about them, but boy, do they deserve admiration because of this thing we keep talking about, this competitive balance, laughing in the face of it. It's really amazing. Okay, this is not European soccer, where teams dominate year after year. This is American sports built on competitive balance. So we just see such an incredible run of success that they've had. Okay? Any other thoughts, comments on the Super Bowl? A sociological question. Is there anyone in here that did not watch the Super Bowl? Prince, your reasoning? So it was kind of a boycott? What did you actually do? No, that's all right. Um, I guess what I was really asking, I don't want to. I don't want to know what you did, but I wonder how you dealt. Maybe this is the same answer, and I don't. You don't have to. What did you deal with socially? How did you deal socially with? I'm sure everyone you know watching. You deleted it for yesterday or for? Oh, okay. Really? Did you check scores during that time or anything? You're a sports fan, and you were able to stay away from the Super Bowl. Stayed away. Yeah. But no interest in. Do you watch football normally? Ravens. Okay. Wow. I mean, I guess the question I was looking for is how do you stay away from such a, 120 million people watching? I'm sure all your friends, all your associates. Yeah. Okay. Enough said. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah. It certainly has become a national holiday, and uh, so I was there a couple days. I always leave before the game. It's kind of back to my working for the Packers. I'm not going to stay if we weren't in the game. So I was there Thursday through Saturday night. Spoke on a panel actually, which was really brought me down there for on Saturday morning about concussions and brain health, and focus was children and what age they should start playing. It was a tough discussion because a lot of people in the audience were either parents or policymakers or scientists that had dealt with some debilitating injuries through family or friends or things like that. But it's an interesting panel. I hope to have a recording of it so I can let you guys see it as well. Uh, Steinberg party, Vinny, Nick. These two guys worked that party last year. Missed you this year. Um, so they worked with Lee Steinberg, who's one of the old-time agents, who's party every year is kind of a staple on the Super Bowl party calendar. How was it working that last year, guys? Yeah. Good experience? Yeah. Lee Steinberg's an agent, and he's had a party for what 30-something years. Yeah, at the Super Bowl every year. And it's kind of a who's who comes to the party, and it's crowded as heck. It's a much smaller venue than last year. Yeah, small. Yeah, it was small. It was packed. Um, I felt very old. You guys would be in the party scene down there, not me. I was probably the only one in leaving a party before midnight when the rappers started at midnight, I guess. I had to ask my son who these guys were, and so I could talk to people about it. But it's a scene at the Super Bowl. It's really something where, it's a week of meetings, parties, business events, and then sort of Sunday you realize, oh wow, there's a game. There's a game that's part of this. That's how the Super Bowl week has become. It's full of so many activities, you really forget there's a game going on. Okay, any other comments, thoughts, questions about the Super Bowl? As you guys know, it wasn't a scintillating game, but people watch, except for Prince. I mean, it's the only programming in the country that will draw that kind of number. 110 million people or whatever it is. I think the next closest is like the Oscars at 30 million, something like that. So you see what kind of power it has. Okay. Any other thoughts? Dovetailing off what we just talked about, we have mentioned a lot in the early part of this class about caps. The one thing you should know about caps is the best way to describe it is an artificial restriction on collective player spending. It really has nothing to do with any individual player. We just talked a lot about Tom Brady. A cap has nothing to do with Tom Brady significantly. He's just one of 60, 70 players. So on a football team, for instance, the cap covers everyone. It covers active players. It covers injured players. It covers players that are on injured reserve, players that you do injury settlements with, players that are suspended but were on your team at some point, players that you released years ago, but their prorated signing bonus still sits on your cap. So there's literally 80, 90 charges on your cap. It's a collective number. So the best way to define a salary cap in sports is an artificial, because it's artificial. It's something that leagues, through competitive balance, are placing on players through bargaining of how much they can be paid en masse. Okay, so never, when you think about a cap, never think about individual pay. Think about the entire product. Okay, so my jobs in my career have gone from agent, where you're worried about your player maximizing that player's number, which has only effect for you in terms of what happens to that player, to the team side, which is all about the collective. It's all about the collective on the team side. All you care about is the entire product. So every contract you negotiate, you are always thinking not so much about that player. You're thinking about how it affects the rest of the team. That's your primary concern in a cap system. You're really not so much focused on that player and how great he is and how he compares to this player and that player, all the things the agent is talking about. Your concern is, okay, can we fit him in at a certain number and go along with what we're trying to do elsewhere? That's what in NHL, NBA, and football, that's what they're concerned about. So the cap is collective. And I always liken managing a cap to stuffing an octopus in a box. There's always something hanging out. Seems like there's always something hanging out. You think you got this good contract, but there's a little thing hanging out because now you got to fix it on the other part of your cap. That may mean a renegotiation with another player. That may mean releasing another player. That may mean doing some kind of fancy contract extension, but always preparing for the present and not hampering your future too. Okay, there are in a lot of these caps ways around and exceptions to the rules. Okay, in the NFL cap, the major exception way around is called signing bonus proration, where you give a player a $10 million bonus over 5 years, and for cap purposes, that's prorated. So it's $2 million a year for cap purposes. For cash purposes, the player just got $10 million. For cap purposes, he's getting $2 million a year. So the cash over cap in that situation is $8 million. That sounds great for the present. You just better hope with a player like that, you never have to get rid of them, especially early in the contract. Because if you do, the unamortized proration accelerates. So that player with a $10 million bonus, he doesn't work out, he either stinks or you don't like him or he's a jerk or he has trouble off the field, you cut him in year 2, you accelerate $8 million on your cap. That's not cash. The cash has been paid. It's cap. So you have no player and you have $8 million of cap expense on your team. So when we talk about a cap, it's also including all these numbers for players who are no longer there. That's the hard part of the cap. It's called dead money. Okay, money for people that are off your team, also non-roster money. So we can do an example of how that works in a minute. But we have the 3 leagues that are cap leagues. They are cap leagues for one reason only, competitive balance. We got to make sure these teams are on a level playing field. Every small market is so invested in a cap because they think if there's no cap, the New Yorks and LAs and Miamis and Dallases are going to buy up the best players. We can't compete. I'm a living example. 10 years in Green Bay, Wisconsin, the smallest market in all of pro sports. We did well. Big reason was the salary cap. Obviously. Obviously. A city like that, there's no way they could compete without a salary cap. Okay. So these 3 leagues of the Big 4 have a cap. And I've talked ad nauseum about the reason for a cap, competitive balance. Major League Baseball does not have a cap, which you should know by now. That's the one sport that doesn't. It's a capless league. Why? Good question. Good question. Okay, those of you that are baseball fans, I'm sure you have your own reasons. The obvious reason is the Major League Baseball Players Association that represents the collective group of baseball players has more power than these other leagues, these other unions, excuse me. But somewhere along the way, Major League Baseball negotiated a collective bargaining agreement without a salary cap. And everything I tell you about negotiations starting last week, the easier part of being a negotiator is when you like the status quo. When you have the status quo, that's where you're leveraged. That's where you're in good shape. And every negotiation in the history of baseball now is, hey, we got no cap. We're not going there. Whereas in the other 3 sports, the leagues say, we have a cap. We're not going back. We're a cap league. And I would guess in 50 years, it's going to be the exact same way. Hockey, football, and basketball will have salary caps. Baseball won't, because it's all about the negotiation. Once you have the status quo, you're in good shape. And the status quo in baseball is no cap. What does that mean? Well, I can tell you this. In the NFL, if the cap's $180 million, the spread between spending between the highest team at maybe $210 million, and the reason they can go over is the signing bonus proration, and the lowest team could maybe $160 million. Okay, that's $50 million disparity between the high spending team and the lowest spending team. Baseball, You have payrolls of $300 million and payrolls of $80 million in the same league. The same league. So whatever it is, Yankees, Dodgers, they're at 280, 290, $300 million. And then you have Rays and Marlins and Pirates around $100 million. They have to play each other, right? That doesn't seem like a fair fight. Because there's no self-regulating device called a salary cap. There's no regulator. There's no competitive balance product in baseball. So, it's an advantage to the players, obviously, to not have a cap. But there is a disadvantage to players not having a cap. Can anyone tell me the disadvantage for players when there's no salary cap? Kelsey. No minimum, because caps are floors and ceilings. So the cap, if you had a cap in baseball, say at $200 million, you would also have a floor negotiated. Say it'd be 150 million, 160, 170 million. And teams would have to spend to the minimum. That's where baseball players get screwed. Because of these teams I just mentioned that are spending 100, 110, 120 million dollars on payroll with other teams over 250. There is no regulator for those teams to spend up, right? So the worry about a cap is that teams won't spend enough. So the minimums in the caps are good for players. The maximums are bad, but the minimums are good. So when you're out there talking about salary caps and someone says, yeah, those baseball players are so lucky, no salary cap, you go, no, not exactly. Because they don't have minimums, they don't have floors, and teams can get away with spending basically nothing on a comparative relative sense on payroll. Okay, so when we talk about a cap, it's all about competitive balance at the top end, but it's also about competitive balance at the bottom end. That's a real big part of caps. That's where baseball would really like a cap if you're the player's side. But if you're looking out for, keeping the Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, etc., Cubs spending what they spend, you don't want that cap. I just think it has to be, unlike all the other sports, it has to be tough being a fan of a small market baseball team. Do we have some of those in here? Go ahead. Yeah. But did they have those 98 wins with a low payroll too? Yeah. So what's your feeling about them now?
I've always hated Pirates ownership. As long as my fandom of Pirates has existed, I've always hated their owner.
And the owner for not spending, basically? Is that why?
Yeah, no, he's real cheap. So, I think he's probably the most hated man in Pittsburgh. I truly think that if he had a heart attack walking down Main Street, nobody would help him up. And this is a city, I've got a few sports. So
it's okay.
That's young to love his sport. And I think everybody
Yeah.
has a real love-hate relationship with the Pirates because he's brought them up.
So if you're commissioner, how do you get the Pirates to spend?
Well, I know last year, their certain divisions complained.
Right.
They get a share of the revenues, and the Oakleys got 50 million last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they were starting to get relaxed.
Yeah, we'll talk about revenue sharing, right?
Yeah, they were starting to relax about where it went to the Pirates because they paid that 50 million
for the minimum.
Yeah.
For the minimum, right? And you've lost hope.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bleak. But especially Patriots and everything. Not a great news.
Right. You're a Pittsburgh guy too. And but you've lost hope in the baseball. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, see, what I see about the low payrolls is this, what I'm seeing with you two guys is sort of a loss of hope from fandom because if you're not hopeful about a team in February, that's a problem. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think what upsets fans the most is that ownership doesn't try, right? Doesn't try. And we can all talk about spending that doesn't work out. You know, the Yankees are obviously years of example on that. But spending gives you a better chance because theoretically you're buying good players. Theoretically you're making an effort to win. Who's the other small market up there? Who's your team? Marlins. Uh huh. Right. 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 I think what gives fans hope, even in those situations like you guys are talking about, is a plan, right? If you see the plan, okay, Sixers fans, past several years, right? If you see the plan, you're okay, and you're seeing a plan. Yeah. Right. 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 But all of you, if you were in a competitive balance league, excuse me, a salary cap league, you wouldn't have these concerns, right? Because there'd be a minimum spend, there'd be competitive balance imposed on your teams, good and bad. Yeah. And then, there's still going to be the Tom Brady's overcoming all this, but there won't be the mosh pit of teams not having a chance. Okay, so the contrast between baseball and these other teams is really stark. Um, the other part of competitive, I mean, these are the cap numbers. You can't see, it's just a visual with all the NFL teams' updated cap numbers. But we're about to learn the NFL's new cap for 2019. It's projected to be about 10 to 12 million more than last year, which was last year was 177 million. Again, for like 60, 70 players. Bless you. This year projected maybe 190. Um, again, this shows you the money in sports comparatively because, again, 180 million for 70, 80 players versus the NBA, which is 101 million for 15 players. Dramatically higher numbers in basketball. A lot of reasons why beyond the fact there are less players. Uh, and then the NHL for, what is it, 25 players a team? I'm not even sure. Any hockey fans? How many players on a team? I don't know. No one knows. Anyway, the cap's 80 million. No, on a team, on a roster. 25. Okay. So 25, 80 million cap, a little over 3 million average in the hockey. And then, of course, once again, you don't see baseball up there. There's no cap. So baseball, again, I'm back to it, where a cap is really a budget, right? So the Pirates have a budget of whatever they have, and the Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, Red Sox maybe have an unlimited budget. So that's where the difference is. Okay. Some words on free agency. I won't go through all this. Go ahead, Mark. Well, it's complicated. You can never be over the cap. Um, yeah, so what this is are the actual spending. Oh, you know what this is? This is the adjusted caps. The NFL allows you to carry over money. So you have unused cap room from one year, you carry it over to the next. The actual cap in the NFL this year is 177. A lot of teams have a lot more. And they have it because they brought over money from 2017 into 18. Now teams are bringing over 2018 money into 2019. Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, from a player's point of view, I think this slide is just a little disturbing because what's happening is teams are carrying over cap year after year and not using it. Now they say, hey, look, players, it's great because we have more cap room. We're carrying it over. Look, we're going to spend, but they don't spend because they keep carrying it over. And you don't even have to bring it over. You can leave $30 million of cap room on the table and not bring it over. There's no mandate that you have to. Now, teams do because why not? Why leave it behind? But there's an actual cap and adjusted cap. So again, cap is a staple of the business of sports. Something that started in the 1980s with the NBA, actually. And it's just self-regulating. It really is. Now, I'm going to skip these free agency slides right now because I want to get to this. This is a way, even in a cap league, of really changing everything we know about competitive balance. And again, our prompt is about this sport because this really couldn't happen in the NFL. This really couldn't happen in the NHL. And even in baseball, without a salary cap, nothing like this really happens. Okay? But because of the limited number of roster spots and because of the power of superstars in NBA basketball, this is happening. And what this is a merger of talent of the top players, where individual players are dictating, which we have not seen before in pro sports until LeBron and Wade back in whatever many years ago. This is something that really is changing how we view the model in pro sports. Now, again, I don't want to make too much of it because you don't see all the NBA, NFL stars getting together. You don't see all the NHL or the even Major League Baseball without a cap for a lot of different reasons. But in the NBA, this has become the hot button issue, and it dovetails exactly into what we're going to do our little role play on in a few minutes. This is the super team idea. So this is kind of where we started with Brady and the Patriots. We can design a lot of things to achieve the model we want of competitive balance. But something's going amiss here. Something is happening. Can we fix it? Should we fix it? Okay, so 2 summers ago, Kevin Durant sits in a house in the Hamptons, and billionaires come to the Hamptons and grovel for him to come to their team. And the Celtics bring Tom Brady, and everyone's bringing everyone, right? That is not what anyone intended when they drafted all these competitive balance rules, these collective bargaining agreements, everything. Like, wait a minute. How does this happen? And years ago, same thing. In an office building in Cleveland, billionaire owners, Pat Riley, everybody's going to Cleveland in a little conference room in an office building and groveling to LeBron. Groveling. What can we do? The power of superstars in the NBA is dramatic. And Durant and LeBron, and now we're talking about Anthony Davis, they are taking less to do this. Okay? They're going to take less money. That is not what anyone ever thought would happen. Because we know money rules in pro sports. But now we're in a different era. We're like, oh my God, they can do this. So, take a break. We're going to talk about the Anthony Davis situation. If you're not a huge NBA fan, we'll set it up for you. And then I'm going to give you some guidelines, but it's going to be pretty open-ended. The 2 questions I just asked, I'll explain the it. The it is stars dictating terms that affect competitive balance in your sport. And the questions are, should we fix it, and how do we fix it? Because LeBron, Kevin Durant, and now Anthony Davis are dictating a different system to the league. Dictating. It's amazing. Where billionaire owners are again groveling to the player. And the player is saying, I don't even want to consider you. Okay. That's not what anyone intended. And, as we'll talk about, collective bargaining agreements have tried to answer this question. And it's not working.